Okay, good morning, everybody. We are going to start day 2 of our Instructional Quality Commission meeting. Our first line of business is an action item for the full IQC, approval of the draft computer science strategic implementation plan for the 30-day public review and comment period. And for that, I'll hand it over to Commissioner Murphy-Corwin.
Good morning. As chair of the Education Technology Committee, I would like to move this morning that the IQC approve the draft computer science strategic implementation plan for the 30-day public review and comment period.
So is there a second to the motion?
A second.
Okay, so Commissioner Murphy-Corwin has moved and Commissioner Fairchild has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, I call for a vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion passes. Great. Okay. Our next item is looking at the public hearing on the submissions for the 2018 science adoption for Kate. Oh, I missed the survey. Oh, it's on the back. Sorry, flip this paper over. Moving to action item number 2, full IQC approval of the draft computer science strategic implementation plan online survey for the public review and comment period.
Once again, as chair of the Education Technology Committee, I would like to move that the IQC approve the draft computer science strategic implementation plan online survey for the public review and comment period.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a tie, but I am going to give that to Commissioner Naditz. Commissioner Murphy-Corwin has moved and Commissioner Naditz has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, I call for a vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, oppose? Abstain? Okay, motion passes. Okay, now we're going to move over to the public hearing on the submission for the 2018 science adoption of K-8 instructional materials. So the full Instructional Quality Commission will take action today on the recommendations for the science adoption, but first we must hold another public hearing to accept comment on the submitted instructional materials. Members of the public, if you want to address the Commission today and have not signed up to speak at today's hearing, please do so at this time. There is a sign-in sheet at the back table. When you sign in, staff will give you a card with the number of your sign-in on it. So I now convene the full Commission public hearing on the science adoption. Before we take the first speaker, I want to remind the audience of what the Commission can and cannot do. We cannot change the state content standards. We cannot change the evaluation criteria for this adoption. We cannot delay or stop the adoption. And we cannot rewrite the text. However, we can recommend minor edits and corrections as defined in regulations. We can also recommend additional social content citations. Public comment will be organized as follows. Cliff Rudnick will announce the speakers in numbered order in groups of 5. I think we only have one speaker on our list, okay? So let's see, I don't know if we have to go through this so much. If you have written materials for the Science SMC, please give the materials to Tracy Yee at the table to the left of the podium for distribution to the committee members. Please state your name and affiliation as you begin. Cliff?
We actually had a second speaker sign in.
Okay, perfect. During the public hearing, speakers will be allowed we're going to do, because we only have 2 speakers, we'll do 10 minutes to testify, depending on how many speakers we have. So I think we've decided on 10 minutes.
10 minutes per program or
yes.
10 minutes per speaker?
10 minutes per program.
Okay, 10 minutes per program.
Please do not repeat what previous speakers have said. If you agree with the previous speaker, you can just state that and allow the next speaker to comment. Speakers may not yield their time to another speaker, nor may speakers add to their time by reading comments from another member of the public who is not present. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to go to the public hearing.
Our first speaker is Andrew Norris, and he is speaking on 3 programs.
Thank you.
Good morning, Andrew Norris from TPS Publishing. I'm going to speak on all 3 programs. The first one I'd like to speak on briefly is the STEAM into NGSS program. TPS would like to respond to the Science Committee discussion yesterday. TPS were disappointed to not hear the committee's views of the evidence TPS presented. We're disappointed. We wonder if you can confirm that the evidence was reviewed, and if we can explain whether you agree or disagree with the evidence failed for 1.1 first standard as an example. TPS are hoping to use this process to improve our program, and having that content and that discussion would be very useful. Can you advise why the evidence provided did not, for the first standard in the report of findings, meet your approval? All the evidence was submitted during August, giving time for review. Professors at Illinois State University created the phenomena and were using DAPIC process. TPS provided information in their evidence, and CMAS at ISU sent a full explanation to show why the phenomena are built according to not built according to early adopters' best practices, but are adhering to the DAPIC method, which was founded by the university and funded by the National Science Organization and has resulted in 5% test score improvement. As categories 2 through 5 passed, TPS believe the evidence is strong to show this program should have passed all science content, as creative science did. The panel using the STEAM vignettes did pass the set criteria 1.9 in comparison to other programs. I'm finished there with STEAM into NGSS program. If I can move on to discuss the STEAM exploration. The panel started by failing 34 science standards, and within deliberations perhaps ran out of time, but passed 30 of them once they understood how the program was built. TPS hoped that the Science Subject Matter Committee would have reviewed and commented it, as a small further change could have passed the most important criteria. If it still did not pass, we would like to have heard from expert opinion how we could improve the program. Can you advise us in detail, as you did for other programs, why we failed these 4 standards, having seen the TPS evidence? The comments about IMAST are true for all 3 panels, but not one panelist advised that they could not access the already adopted content. It's difficult that the IQC cannot discuss the TPS evidence and advise, as occurred for other suppliers, what is right and what is wrong. TPS believes this program should pass and ask for more discussion. And then I'd finally like to move on to discuss the creative science program. TPS Publishing would like to respond to the small amount of discussion which took place yesterday in reference to our program, and ask the IQC what was missing in the TPS evidence for categories criteria 1.9, 1.11, and category 4. The comments centered much around the hard-working panel of 4 California teachers. TPS agree that they did put in a lot of effort and worked hard for our cause. But our program also involved close to 100 hard-working teachers. We thought that the process, as clarified by the CDE, was that the IQC members were to review the evidence from publishers and then make their own decision. Sadly, we believe it's clear the evidence provided hasn't been necessarily reviewed by all IQC members. During discussion of another publisher, comments were made that panel members, and we'd quote, steeped in early adopter pedagogy, applied personal preferences in edits requested. TPS believe that the same occurred when panels reviewed our programs. There was in-depth discussion about science for other publishers, but not for TPS. It is disappointing that it appears compliance with criteria 1.11 was the only reason cited to not recommend when TPS had demonstrated compliance and offered to go further. The STEM projects in IMAST, forensic science, scientist content, and reader book activities were not reviewed by the panel and are already adopted in California. Do these not provide compliance to 1.11? Were the lessons on organ donation linked to Latino groups or the scientist fact sheets not sufficient? Why or why not would be helpful to know for TPS. Evidence is only required within the programme and not by grade. The facilitator stated no evidence was found by the panel for failed criteria, but that's not true. Listening to the deliberation tapes, evidence was found and accepted by the panel for all groups, but that in the panel's opinion there wasn't enough. However, they thought there were 63 scientists and TPS has demonstrated 170. The panel failed by omission to complete a full review of the cited content. No comments were made regarding the evidence submitted to Address 1.9 and Category 4. TPS showed numerous occasions where California science was clearly at the forefront. Examples were given where evidence-placed science where students compare Alaska and California facts, in whole lessons about earthquakes, organ donation, and in vignettes which are clearly focused on the California and the panel missed. We were hoping the IQC panel would view this content and advise why it does or does not meet criteria 1.9. TPS quoted the science framework cited research regarding STEM and arts programs in reference to Category 4, and advised in Chapter 10 as being a major goal, and showed picture glossary cards, NASAN-approved special education projects, and bite-sized chunks in focus tutorial. Did the IQC members review this evidence, and if so, does this demonstrate it is still missing or not suitable? Even if the program is to be rejected, we believe it would have been beneficial to California students to have received constructive criticism. The facilitator failed, even if the program is to be rejected, we believe it would have been beneficial to California students to have received constructive criticism and comment, which would have allowed us to go away and make meaningful improvements. TPS worked hard to follow the guidelines set out by the framework, but appear to have received little credit for having done so. Are the California teachers involved in the program not due the courtesy of having that criticism? The facilitator failed to advise that the science made science errors while reviewing our program in regards to fireflies and snowshoe hares existing in California, but this was not addressed by the IQC. TPS would like to ask why this wasn't addressed. Had they known, as per California Wildlife website, that they exist, criteria 1.9 would have passed. In reference to social compliance, it is difficult to understand how previously adopted materials are now subject to edits. TPS was commended for representing all groups with the reader activity books and IMAST, which are common components in the K-8 adopted math program and these science programs. Can the IQC advise TPS how one panel is permitted to reject already adopted materials? TPS would also like to address an exaggeration made during yesterday's discussion. It was stated that 100,000 links were provided to the review panel. In reality, across an entire K-8 program, approximately 20,000 were provided, a much smaller figure. The TPS president commented about the total for all submitted adoption programs in California and Texas. This number is not purely about creative science and was an offhand comment perhaps to the panel. To put into context, the criteria map has 80 separate criteria. The K-8 program provides 5 citations per criteria. That's 3,600 citations would be provided. The legislature does not state a maximum or a minimum. Other states have a set number of citations per standard, which is something perhaps should be considered for future adoptions. IMAST was cited as the first place to look in Category 4, but during deliberations it was stated they were not able, that the panel was not able to access the content. This was not reported to TPS, so we could not make any improvements. The STEAM K-8 vignettes were cited multiple times in many categories and viewed by the other 2 review panels, but Panel 9 said they were not available. Why did they not report this to TPS so we could improve their review? When presented with the printed vignettes, they said that they did not have students' task, which is simply inaccurate. Is it that you would have voted without any discussion of the key evidence from TPS? We understand that you may not wish to overturn a panel decision, but if errors and omissions have occurred, is that not the role of the IQC to review the evidence in detail, discuss and debate, as has occurred for other publishers? TPS would again ask, what is missing to support the criteria 1.9, 1.1, 1.11 and Category 4. Can the Commission justify that you've looked at our programmes and have evidence to decide? We asked to reopen debate and look at one or two citations from the summary book we presented yesterday. All of that content was sent in public comment across multiple documents, so it was in your possession from the first week of public comment. The TPS programme is different to others and attempts to provide a toolbox approach, not just one textbook. The NGSS is a radical shift, so it is disappointing that teachers, schools and districts will not be able to choose a different style of programme. A comment was made yesterday by a commissioner that this is the first step in a process and that districts should be able to choose which methods they prefer, not those of a small group trained in a different way to the majority. TPS is disappointed that the choice of a unique programme cannot be made. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Jessica Sacco.
Good morning, members of the Commission. Jessica Sacco, California Science Teachers Association. Here this morning to thank you for the work of the subject matter committee yesterday. The many hours long deliberation was well organized, thoughtful, extensive, and I really appreciate the attention and the care with which the subject matter committee addressed, as I had mentioned yesterday, this very important decision that you are being presented with today to make your recommendation to the State Board of Education. Finally, I just wanted to quickly remind the full commission of the comments I had made yesterday, but more succinctly, which is simply to say thank you to the many people who were involved in this process, to you here today. It takes a great deal of work to put this together and to get this review done right. Also, I want to thank the publishers for having submitted and put a lot of time, money, and effort into making this day possible. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to have as the wealth and plethora of programs that are being presented here today. Finally, again, reinforcing the message about making sure we have corrections in domain-specific and integrated materials, as well as the previous speaker just mentioned, there's local decisions to be made, and making sure that we're clear to the field about what this review process entailed, what it involved, and still what remains to be done in order to make instructional decisions for your kids. And finally, thank you.
Okay.
So commissioners, just for your background knowledge, we did have Jennifer Bentley go through and cross-check the edits and corrections for integrated versus domain-specific to ensure that the edits for content were consistent across both programs when they had the same publishers.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think Jessica Sacco's point is well taken that, you know, we're doing a base level review to make sure that these programs meet the criteria as listed in the California Science Framework, and districts will then, you know, have the obligation to further review these materials to see which programs really meet the needs of their students in their local situation and their teachers in their local situation. And so that part's very important, and it is great that we have so many programs that have been submitted. Yeah, Commissioner Tonkovich.
Well, I have a clarifying question. The interim step, after we make a recommendation, say a program is not recommended to the board, there's still an opportunity for the publisher to present public comment before the board makes their final decision, and then it goes to the final step, the local control. Is that true?
So the adoption process, part of that is accurate, yes. So once the IQC makes their recommendations, we present that to the State Board of Education in November, their November meeting this year. And then once the State Board takes action, we work with the publishers on ensuring all of the edits and corrections were made for their final versions. Usually they're available for districts in early spring for them to then review and conduct their own analysis.
Okay, but my question is, as always, I'm assuming, the board has the ability to change our recommendation. That's what I was curious about.
Yes, the State Board can overturn any recommendation of the Instructional Quality Commission.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we're going to move forward. I'll adjourn the full commission public hearing on the science adoption for kindergarten through grade 8. I want to thank today's speakers and express the appreciation of the commission for the interest, time, and effort each of you has contributed to present your views to us today. And we can now move on to commission recommendation to the State Board of Education on the submissions for the 2018 science adoption of K-8 instructional materials. So now that we have heard public comment, we can conduct any necessary discussion and then make our motions to recommend programs to the State Board of Education, beginning with the consent list recommended by the Science SMC. All motions are made in the affirmative to recommend the program to the State Board of Education. If the motion passes, the program will be recommended by the Commission to the State Board of Ed for adoption. If the motion fails, the program will not be recommended by the Commission for the adoption by the State Board of Education. Okay, so a motion will be made for the entire consent list, and then for each program not on the consent list. Science Subject Matter Committee Co-Chair Chow will make the motion, and Science Subject Matter Committee Co-Chair Bromelsek will second the motion in each case. Remember that making the motion or seconding it does not obligate the commissioner to vote a certain way. Once the motion is made and seconded, the commissioners will then have an opportunity to discuss any issues they have before the final vote. So that's when we can further our discussion. A roll call vote will be taken on each motion. It will require 9 votes in the affirmative to recommend a program. Okay. And remember, as we vote, that there shall be no voting by proxy. The chair may call for substantive motions made from the floor to be submitted in writing to the recording secretary if necessary. At this time, do any members of the commission wish to remove any items from the consent list? Everyone comfortable with the consent list? Okay. Okay, all right, let's begin. I need a motion to recommend the programs on the list of consent items to the State Board of Education, which includes Accelerate Learning, STEM Scopes, California NGSS 3D, 6 through 8 integrated, Accelerate Learning Incorporated STEM Scopes, California NGSS 3D, 6 through 8 discipline specific, Activate Learning, IQWST California Edition, 6 through 8 integrated, Discovery Education Incorporated, Science Textbook for California NGSS, K through 8 integrated, Great Minds LLC, Great Minds Science 4, grade level 4, Green Ninja Integrated Middle School Science, 6 through 8 integrated, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Publishing Company, California HMH Science Dimensions, K through 6, Lab Aids, Issues in Science, 6 through 7 integrated, Learning Bits Incorporated, Smart NGSS by Science Bits, 6 through 8 discipline specific, McGraw-Hill School Education LLC, California Inspire Science, K through 6, National Geographic Learning, a division of Cengage Learning Incorporated, National Geographic Exploring Science, K through 6 integrated, Pearson Education Incorporated, California Elevate Science, K through 6, Pearson Education Incorporated, California Elevate Science Integrated, 6 through 8 integrated, Pearson Education Incorporated, California Elevate Science, 6 through 8 discipline specific, TCI, Bring Science Alive, California Program K through 5, TCI, Bring Science Alive, California Program 6 through 8 discipline specific, and Twig Education Incorporated, Twig Science K through 6 integrated.
I so move. I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay. Is there any public comment on this motion? Okay, all right, let's conduct the vote.
Okay. IQC Chair Reese.
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow.
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsek.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild.
Aye.
Commissioner Flores.
Aye.
Commissioner Inagas,
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna,
Aye.
Commissioner Lara,
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy Corwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz,
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria,
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
okay, Senator Portantino and Assemblymember Quirk Silva are absent. All programs on the consent list have been recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Now we will consider those programs that are not on the consent list. Remember again that all motions are made in the affirmative to recommend the program for adoption by the State Board of Education. So if the motion passes, the program will be recommended by the IQC for adoption by the State Board of Education. If the motion fails, the program will not be recommended by the IQC for adoption by the State Board of Education. Okay. Okay, so I need a motion to recommend Accelerate Learning Incorporated STEM Scopes California NGSS 3D K through 5 for adoption by the State Board of Education, with minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, printing errors, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move. I second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? And I think we should have discussion here to be consistent. So it's probably a great time to look through public comment that came in for this particular program to make sure that we've considered the public comment from the publisher for this program. Let's take a minute to go find that. Yeah, so just to, I don't know, put this into context, for other programs, we followed this protocol where we would kind of evaluate the public comment from the publisher. And because this was the first program yesterday, when we were in subject matter committee session, we failed to do that. So now's our chance to make sure that we do our due diligence and look at that, so.
At this time, is it okay if I clarify my rationale, what my thoughts were for yesterday? Okay. My reason for my vote yesterday has to, well, there were a number of things, but specifically it came down to item number 19, where the panel recommended that it either be completely removed or rewritten. And I looked to see if there was publisher comment to address that, and there was not. I have issues with under the guise of rewrite.
Okay, could you read maybe the edit? So there's edit correction number 19 on the report of findings?
Yeah, so 19, I guess it's page 4, and I'm not sure. Using stored energy, digital 15, what is energy, the section? It says the whole section is problematic and should be aligned with the 4 PS3 DCIs. It especially struggles with the concept of stored energy. For example, energy can be stored kinetically in the motion of a flywheel, so it's under accuracy. And I specifically looked to see if the publisher had addressed that, and they did not challenge that edit.
Excuse me, I had a question. So when the publisher does not address it, that means a neutral, right? They neither accept nor reject the comments?
It means they accept.
Okay.
That they have no reason to not make that edit.
Just wanted to clarify, thank you.
So I just want to also share, I was a facilitator for this specific panel, and what you just brought up, that was actually something that we did discuss, and I'm trying to remember if the publishers actually talked to us about that, and that's why when I looked at what they submitted, they just accepted it because they had already discussed it with our panel. I don't think it was a rewrite. It was just more of it was a confusion within the text, and it was all digital, so it was a little difficult to be able to go back and forth. But the publishers were there, and they were very helpful in kind of making us reconsider. We did make clear it's still going to be under edits and corrections. But that's why I know yesterday when we went through it, I guess I personally didn't have any discussion because that was the first program I looked at, and I looked at all the comments because I was there, and I realized the ones that they did submit comment for, I think it was acceptable. Like, they have a point. For the ones that they didn't, I could see why not. It was a very thorough discussion. We had a great panel, but that was the one that I looked at, but I do remember discussing it during the panel review.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Renteria. So that raises a question for me, which is, if this section were to be removed, and there's, content, so for PS3, the disciplinary core ideas for 4 PS3, are those covered in another place in the program so that there's not missing content?
So I'm going to try to channel the content extra review that was there. He did say that there was, based on when because that was something that we kept going back to. If we are saying that this isn't found here, is it found elsewhere? And I know that one of the other content reviewers did find it elsewhere. But we just submitted as an edit because that was still problematic for the panel.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, if this were to be removed, which the publisher did not contest, because they didn't submit comment, about this particular suggested edit, we're assuming that means they're accepting that suggested edit. And you're saying that the content is covered elsewhere and based off your content review expert. Okay, that's helpful.
So then are we suggesting that the edit is to remove this section? Because that's not what's written here. It says the whole section is problematic and should be aligned with. So should the IQC be suggesting that it just be removed?
How large a section are we talking about here?
So the way the program is formatted, it's all digital. So you click on the link, it takes you to like the stored energy, and it's like it's not a big section. I don't know if I would go as far as saying just remove, because we would have to have access to the content right now to be able to see to what extent. I'm under the assumption that the publishers are taking that and kind of like interpreting it to their own discretion and maybe making some changes that are just enough to provide, I think, a less confusing segment. But I don't know if I would go as far as saying just remove, because we don't have it in front of us.
So the edit specifically says that it especially struggles with the concept of stored energy. And so they're asking that that section be rephrased to be more accurate.
Yeah.
So not removed, but just rephrased to make sure that there's accurate information there.
Okay, so then I would say to add into this section that we make that statement that it needs to be rephrased.
Any further discussion on that item? Okay. Are there other, so we should kind of look closely at this list.
All right, so accelerate on the 8/27/18 letter in the public comment. They are, there was a seismograph that the panel wanted removed, it looks like, and they are asking that rather than remove it, they put a sentence underneath it that explains more about what is in the seismograph to clarify it.
Okay, that seems like a minor edit.
Mm-hmm.
So does that sound good to everybody, that we recommend that they, I guess we accept the recommendation of the publisher for this edit. Okay?
I had a question about item number 9 and 10 and the report of findings. Do we know if the publisher accepted those edits?
So the publisher submitted 3 comments, right? So we've looked at the first comment. Let's look at the other 2 comments and see if we can find it there. And if not, then we're assuming that they're accepting the panel's report of finding suggested edits.
So it looks like the other 2 comments, the 9, 12, 18 comments are connected to each other. One of them is a letter explaining the other. And the panel wanted more diversity. It doesn't look like it was something that they said was bad enough that they didn't accept, but they wanted more diversity. And so there's a chart there that shows the full diversity of who is shown and where across the entire program.
So the last comment doesn't address, I don't think it addresses, let's see.
Doesn't address any other edits.
Yeah, it doesn't address any other edits, but we can still take a look at that comment. So at this time, are we ready to accept the edits of the panel? Okay.
So just to clarify, you're accepting the edits of the panel except for number 19, you're adding the term rephrase. And number 24, you are accepting the publisher recommendation, not the panel recommendation.
Okay. And now let's look at the last public comment there by Rick Occulto from Our Family Coalition. So as I read through this, I'm hearing commentary on different sections, but I'm not seeing recommendations for like a concrete change, which makes it challenging because I don't want to misrepresent the intention of this comment. What are your thoughts?
It seems to me that he read through a lot of again, not having seen the program, it looks like he read through a lot of the teacher support with a very narrow lens and wasn't super happy with how the teachers supported with certain groups. But again, a very narrow lens and no recommendations on how to fix it.
I also want to add that during our discussion, our panel, this is actually not one of the criteria that we found many issues with. Like, they actually were very excited that there's a lot of extension activities. I think that that's also something to mention with digital programs. It's easy to see the teacher guidance and whatnot, but there was a lot of extension activities that students had access to. So, and that's something that we actually did note. And if you go to our panel report under access and equity, that is one of the things that we brought up, that there was multiple examples of activities that allowed for differentiation to support all different groups. So that was something that was discussed, and it was purposely noted under the report of findings.
Okay. So is there any further discussion on edits and corrections? Okay.
So you have a modified motion.
Mm-hmm.
Cliff, can you please read us the modified motion?
So the modified motion would read, to recommend Accelerate Learning, Inc., STEM Scopes California NGSS 3D K5 for adoption by the SBE with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with the exceptions of edit 19, where it will be stated to rephrase the section, and edit 24, which will use the publisher recommendation from public comment. With any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, printing errors, and any administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
Okay. So that is our motion. Would anybody like to move the motion forward?
So moved.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese.
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow.
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsack.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild.
Aye.
Commissioner Flores.
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez.
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna.
Aye.
Commissioner Lara.
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz.
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy Corwin.
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz.
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria.
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Okay, Senator Portantino and Assemblymember Cork Silver are absent. The program is recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, let's address the next program. So I need a motion to recommend Amplify Education Incorporated, Amplify Science, California Discipline Specific Course Model, 6 through 8 discipline specific for adoption by the State Board of Education, with minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Let's take a second to remember whether we... Okay, so let's look at this one again.
There's only two.
Perfect.
It's going to have a response from the publisher.
All right. So there were only two recommended edits, and one of them the company accepted. Both of them were typos. One of them they accepted. The second one, they wanted to fix it in a slightly different way. It originally said who becomes a space scientist. The recommended was to make it who became a space scientist, and they want to do who becomes a space scientist. So slightly different lettering, but that was the only thing that they wanted to do differently.
Thank you, Commissioner Wu. Any other further discussion? So we're willing to accept these edits? Okay.
Okay, so are you accepting the publisher recommendation for edit number 2? Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, publisher recommendation.
Cliff, would you read the edited motion?
Certainly. So the motion is to recommend Amplify Education, Inc., Amplify Science, California Discipline-Specific Course Model, 68D, for adoption by the SBE with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee and the Commission's decision to utilize the publisher submitted response to edit number 2 with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, printing errors, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
Okay. Would anyone like to move the motion?
I so move. I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
Aye.
Commissioner Brummelsack,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman,
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz, Commissioner Fairchild,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez,
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna,
Aye.
Commissioner Lara,
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin, Commissioner Naditz,
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria,
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Senator Portantino and Assemblymember Quirk Silver are absent. The program is recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, I need a motion to recommend Amplify Education Incorporated, Amplify Science, California Integrated Course Model K through 8 Integrated for adoption by the State Board of Education with minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, there's one public comment that we can look at. Okay, it looks like we have a spreadsheet on the right.
That's the publisher errata.
Okay,
The public comment is from Jerry Harper. It's 5/16/18 for grade 5.
Actually, if I could also add, there is that spreadsheet is the publisher response to the edits and correction. It is not the publisher errata.
okay. Well, let's start with the Jerry Harper public comment. Okay, any thoughts?
He doesn't propose a specific change, so.
Yeah, there was no recommendation, so it's hard to say.
Okay. Sounds good. So I don't think we can make a change here since we don't have a recommendation for a change. So,
So in the publisher response to the things, there's a few that they requested a slightly different wording or anything, but it all looks completely reasonable. So I don't know if anyone wants to discuss a particular one, or if we can just accept all of the publishers. Yeah.
I agree with Commissioner Wu.
Okay, we're all in agreement that we can accept these. Well, I guess we're accepting the publisher's response.
Yes, so you're accepting the publisher edits versus the report of finding edits. Okay.
Most of them are the same, but there's a few that are a little different.
Okay.
But are there report of finding edits that are not? So in other words, they're all covered.
They're all covered.
Okay, perfect.
And for many of them, it was just broken link or because it was another digital.
Okay. So is there any further discussion? Okay, Cliff?
So this one will actually change that first bullet on the motion significantly, because now it shall read to recommend Amplify Education, Inc., Amplify Science, California Integrated Course Model K8I for adoption by the SBE with the minor edits and corrections noted in the publisher response to the report of findings, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, printing errors, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
We need to include the social content citations from the report of findings.
Thank you.
Okay. Would anybody like to move the motion?
I so move.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, let's conduct a vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
Aye.
Commissioner Brumelsack,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman,
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez,
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna,
Aye.
Commissioner Lara,
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy-Corin,
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz,
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria,
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Okay, Senator Portantino and Assemblymember Quirksilver are absent. The program is recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, I think we've had our discussions in Science Subject Matter Committee for many of the programs that we're about to go through, so maybe it'll go fast. So let's start with, I need a motion to recommend Carolina Biological Supply Company, Building Blocks of Science 3D K5 for adoption by the State Board of Education with minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee and the SMC replacement language for edit number 49. With any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, Commissioner Tonkovich?
Well, this is a small grammatical thing. From when yesterday we were talking about number 2, as it reads, all living things move, grow, need air, reproduce, and need food. The need air, and then the change, and then the need food. How would it sound if we said all living things move, grow, reproduce, and need air and food? Do you know what I mean? It just sounds better to me, but it's a small thing.
If you feel strongly about it, we should consider it, so. You want to just give us the 2 versions one more time?
Okay. Well, the entire sentence is finalize the list to make sure students understand that all living things move, grow, reproduce, and need air and food. Otherwise, it says grow, need air, reproduce, and need food. It's just a small thing. I just like the need only used once.
Okay. Commissioner Wu is nodding her head, so, okay. Is everyone okay with that change? Okay. Oh, Commissioner Krishna?
Yes, so listening to yesterday's discussion about this program, I had a question for the SMC committee. If a brand new teacher or a veteran teacher were to pick up this curriculum, how comfortable would they be in disseminating the curriculum to their students? Would they be able to decipher a brand new teacher versus a veteran teacher on the quality and the access of the curriculum?
Good question.
I'm concerned.
hard for me
I'm
to-
concerned about all the students who are receiving the curriculum, and I understand it's the district's opportunity. They have opportunities to look at this curriculum, and the teachers who will be teaching it, they'll be evaluating it. But looking at it holistically, as all the students are getting the curriculum statewide in California, I want to, brand new teachers versus veteran teachers, because I saw a lot of viewpoints yesterday, heard.
Yeah, I think what I would say is it would come down to the local area. And so when you go in and you adopt for your district, you look at your strengths and your weaknesses. And if you have a lot of new teachers who need additional support, you'd look at the publisher to see, well, is there going to be that additional support? So I think I would push that more to a local decision, I think, because it does vary. Each of these publishers' materials do vary by how much support they do give their teachers.
So Commissioner Bromwich, were you the facilitator of this panel?
No, I was not.
Who was the facilitator for this particular panel?
Letty Krause.
Letty, okay.
Letty Krause.
I'm just wondering if this came up, if this was addressed from the review panel, from the reviewers.
Yes, so let's keep in mind that our CDE staff were just facilitators of the process. So as commissioners, you need to go to the report of findings and the categories and criteria and look at what the panel noted as the strengths within. There is a category, it's category 4, program organization. You may want to look at that piece of the report of 5, category 5, program organization. Look at that piece of the report of findings, because again, our CDE facilitators were just there to facilitate the process and not to review the program. That is the commissioner's role. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gregson.
This is a program that barely passed yesterday, and I wouldn't mind hearing from the people who voted no as to why.
I can start. I voted no. Access and equity wasn't actually the reason for me. It was more around the edits. It was just so many of them. And I know we discussed them thoroughly, and I appreciated the discussion, but I guess I'm thinking back to my days in the classroom, and when we were reading just a piece, and a student would say, oh, is this spelled incorrectly? And then I had to go and say, sometimes that happens. Like, there's some grammatical errors. But there were so many that I couldn't stop thinking about that. Like, what happens when the book is printed? And I mean, I want to say that our panels were able to read everything thoroughly, but realistically, they probably didn't. Like, some of these, there might be more errors in that book or in the program that weren't caught. So I think that's where I erred in it felt like so many. I think the program overall holistically was complete. It was just more of I did think about the new teachers and just being in a classroom and having to consistently, oh wait, there's another error. Oh no, it's just a printing error, because there were so many. So that's why I voted no.
I also voted no yesterday, and after we went through every one of those points, we resolved 39 of them. We still had 11 remaining factual errors at the end of the day. And I think about my K-5 teachers, and I think about how they are not always subject matter, content people, and how highly important it is that that content is accurate and that they have a resource that they can rely on, because they're teaching 6 to 7 different subject areas. And that was why I voted no yesterday.
Yeah, I also voted no yesterday, and I wasn't thinking at it from the perspective of new teachers. It was, for me, again, just the factual errors. And again, it came down to, yes, we caught a lot of them, yes, we resolved a lot of them, but how many did we miss? And so that was, when I see that much, that just makes me want to go so that's why I voted no.
It is interesting to note that the publisher did not give any errata of their own.
So,
Wrong one.
I like to press that mute button. So, you know, I'm trying to think about our roles as a commission at this time, and thinking about, you know, the process in terms of weighing a program based off of criteria from the California Science Framework that's been state board adopted, and how personally for me, my opinion or my choice of whether I recommend our program comes down to whether or not category 1 is the gatekeeper category is completely met, and then showing strength in categories 2 through 5. So that's how I was. That's why I voted yes for this, because we kind of sorted through a lot of the suggested edits and dealt with standards that we discovered and made sure that they were there, and then the report of findings showed strength in categories 2 through 5, and that's justification of why I voted yes.
So I'd just like to remind the commissioners to go back to the report of findings, right, and really look at those edits that are categorized as factual errors. Are they truly factual content errors within the science piece? Or for instance, if I look at number 25, the current text says, currently Ochoa is the director of NASA's Johnson Space Center. And Ochoa is the former director of NASA's Johnson Space Center. Well, they left the position in May 2018. These materials were published in April for the reviewers. So is that a content of factual error around the science, or is that just an edit that needed to be made because that person is the former director, not currently director? So I just caution you when you're using the term factual errors that you're using that term in terms of the science content that's aligned to the science framework and our categories and criterion in which these publishers were reviewed, or these programs were reviewed, versus those minor edits where they left in May, these were published in April type of thing. I think that's maybe an unfair statement that it's a factual error. So I would ask you to go through the report of findings, look at your criteria and what you are really reviewing this program based on.
So I also agree with Chair Reese as far as the way I saw my role was to guide the panel, my own panel, through the criteria, and I kept on reminding them that it wasn't really our task to do a quality review in general, and just to keep looking at that criteria, not necessarily whether we would use that material in our own classrooms.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Any more thoughts on this?
Yeah, so the only thing that I would say is, moving forward, just for my clarification, we were accepting the panel's edits and corrections on this one, right? There wasn't anything that the publisher said they were not going to accept. Is that right?
You rejected 39 of the panel's edits, and you modified an edit number 49 to read differently than what the panel recommended.
Okay, then can I just confirm, item 24, was that one of the ones we rejected?
No, you did not reject number 24.
What about item 38?
No, you did not reject number 38.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Lara.
Sure. If I may, and I want to say that I recognize what folks are saying about so many errors, even if they are typos, et cetera, or even small errors such as that, only because that just throws a flag on the whole thing. And because these companies have reviewed their own product multiple times before it's gotten to this stage. So I mean, quite frankly, I just expect a much more polished document when it gets to us at this level. You know, us going back and fixing the grammar on this, I mean, they have folks, I mean, I'm assuming folks have read this multiple times before it got to us, and then we're finding these small things, and then not, some of them aren't small things. Some of them are like a matter of science, right? And I go back to what Commissioner Chapman said, and this is this is primarily for elementary school teachers who may not be content experts in specific science, and we do need the science to be correct on this. And so I just go back to that, and knowing that we're all human beings and we all make errors, and multiple people could look at the same thing and miss the same error. And as somebody who has dyslexia, I make errors all the time, and things look right to me that aren't right, and I'm always double checking things. So I want to recognize all that, but it just always makes me throw caution on something when there are so many, even if they are just grammatical errors, because by the time it gets to this point, it should be a pretty polished document, right? It's like with their students. By the time you turn it in, yeah, it should be right.
Commissioner Tonkovich.
Well, not being on the subject matter committee, I was impressed yesterday. There was 40 citations the publisher addressed, and I thought we went through those very thoroughly, like whether to use the word funny or engaging. I thought we addressed all the factual errors to our satisfaction yesterday.
And I think going back to the report of findings that they did recommend this program with edits. I think all of the programs had suggested edits, and sometimes, like we were saying, the definition of factual error and things like that were used a little loosely. But I also agree that in the discussion yesterday and going through it, that we clarified a lot of that. So I feel, again, we just going back to the criteria as well as going back to the report of findings from the panel. And
Thank you, Commissioner Fairchild. Any other thoughts before we move to a vote? Okay. So Cliff, did we change the motion?
Actually, yes, there was one addition by the commission. So now the motion would recommend Carolina Biological Supply Company building blocks of Science 3D K5 for adoption by the SBE with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee and the SMC replacement language for edit number 49 with any other edits and corrections identified by the commission, including the change to edit number 2 to change it to need, air, and food, with any publisher submitted errata, printing errors, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
Thank you, Cliff. Would anyone like to move the motion?
I so move.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese.
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow.
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsack.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman.
No.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild.
Aye.
Commissioner Flores.
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez.
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna.
No.
Commissioner Lara.
No.
Commissioner Munoz.
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin.
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz.
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria.
No.
Commissioner Tonkovich.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Senator Portantino and Assemblymember Quicksilver are absent. The program is recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, so we're going to, looks like I need a motion to recommend Delta Education LLC FOSS. Did I miss one? Yeah. Oh, there's two. Sorry. Rushing ahead. Okay, here we go. I need a motion to recommend Carolina Biological Supply Company, STCMS, Science and Technology Concepts Middle School, 6 through 8 discipline specific for adoption by the State Board of Education with minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Is there any discussion?
So just to clarify, this is not recommended, right? Based on the report of findings?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay, any other further discussion? Okay, let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
No?
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
No.
Commissioner Bromelsack,
No.
Commissioner Chapman,
No.
Commissioner Diaz,
No.
Commissioner Fairchild,
No.
Commissioner Flores,
No.
Commissioner Iniguez,
No.
Commissioner Krishna,
No.
Commissioner Lara,
No.
Commissioner Munoz,
No.
Commissioner Murphy Corwin,
No.
Commissioner Naditz,
No.
Commissioner Renteria,
No?
Commissioner Tonkovich,
No.
Commissioner Wu.
No.
Okay, both Senator Portantino and Assemblymember Quirk Silver are absent. The program is not recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, I need a motion to recommend Delta Education LLC FOSS Next Generation Elementary K-5 for adoption by the State Board of Education with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with the exception of edit number 5, which will use the language submitted by the publisher as public comment. With any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsack,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman,
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez,
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna,
Aye.
Commissioner Lara,
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy Corwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz,
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria,
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Okay, both the senator and assembly member are absent. The program is recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, I need a motion to recommend Delta Education LLC FOSS Next Generation Middle School 6 through 8 integrated for adoption by the State Board of Education with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with the exception of the edit number 4. The SMC chose to use the corrected page number submitted by the publisher through public comment. With any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, printing errors, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsack,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman,
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild, Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez,
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna,
Aye.
Commissioner Lara,
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy Corwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz,
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria,
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Okay, both the senator and assembly member are absent. The program is recommended.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Okay, I need a motion to recommend Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Publishing Company, California HMH Science Dimensions 6 through 8 integrated for adoption by the State Board of Education with minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with the exceptions of edits 22 and 32, where the SMC chose the publisher language submitted through public comment, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsack,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman,
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild, Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez.
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna.
Aye.
Commissioner Lara. Commissioner Munoz.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin.
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz.
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria.
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Both the senator and assembly member are absent. The program is recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay. I need a motion to recommend Impact Science Education Incorporated Impact Science Integrated Middle School Program for California NGSS 6 through 8 Integrated for adoption by the State Board of Education, with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with the exceptions of edits 44 and 45, where the SMC chose the publisher language submitted through public comment, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Is there any discussion?
This point of clarification for me, we accepted the publisher's what did they say? They made adjustments to 9 of the panel findings. We accepted the publishers for the 9 that they were not accepting. Is that correct yesterday?
So for Impact Science yesterday, you chose the publisher recommendations for number 44 and number 45. And then you rejected on the report of findings 23, 35, 36, 39, 42, 46, and 53.
Okay, so yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gregson, and thank you, Commissioner Bromelsek. Any other discussion on this? Okay. So let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese.
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow.
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsek.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild.
Aye.
Commissioner Flores.
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez.
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna.
Aye.
Commissioner Lara.
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz.
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin.
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz.
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria.
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Okay, both the senator and assembly member are absent. The program is recommended.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. I need a motion to recommend Impact Science Education Incorporated Impact Science Middle School Program by Discipline for California NGSS 6 through 8 Discipline Specific for adoption by the State Board of Education, with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with the exceptions of edit number 2, where the SMC chose the publisher language submitted through public comment, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, let's conduct the vote.
Okay, IQC Chair Reese.
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow.
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsek.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman.
No, we're not.
No.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild.
Aye.
Commissioner Flores.
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez.
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna.
Aye.
Commissioner Lara.
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz.
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin.
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz.
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria.
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Okay, both the senator and assembly member are absent. The program is recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay. I need a motion to recommend Knowing Science, LLC, Knowing Science Curriculum, Physical Life, Earth, and Space, K through 5, for adoption by the State Board of Education, with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, so this was not recommended by the reviewers in the report of findings. Okay, so let's conduct the vote.
Okay, IQC Chair Reese.
No?
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
No.
Commissioner Bromelsack,
No.
Commissioner Chapman,
No.
Commissioner Diaz. Was that a no? Okay. Commissioner Fairchild, Commissioner Flores,
No.
Commissioner Iniguez,
No.
Commissioner Krishna,
No.
Commissioner Lara,
No.
Commissioner Munoz,
No.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin,
No.
Commissioner Natids,
No.
Commissioner Renteria,
No.
Commissioner Tonkovich,
No.
Commissioner Wu.
No.
Okay, both the senator and assembly member are absent. The program is not recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Commissioner Diaz, you were like front and back on that. Okay. Front and back, yeah. Okay. So we're going to move forward. I need a motion to recommend McGraw-Hill School Education, LLC, California Inspire Science K-6-8 Discipline Specific for adoption by the State Board of Education with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE Report of Findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee and the SMC, addition of one edit to Unit 4, page 62, replacing one image, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Wu. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsack. Not here for the vote? Okay. Commissioner Chapman,
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez,
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna,
Aye.
Commissioner Lara,
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Natids,
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria,
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
You want to go back, Commissioner Bromelsack?
Aye.
Okay, both the senator and assembly member are absent. The program is recommended.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Okay, I need a motion to recommend McGraw-Hill School Education, LLC, California Inspire Science 6 through 8 integrated for adoption by the State Board of Education with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE Report of Findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee.
I so move.
I'm almost done.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Jump the gun.
Okay. With any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, printing errors, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsack,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman,
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez,
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna,
Aye.
Commissioner Lara,
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Natids,
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria, Commissioner Tonkovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Okay, both senator and assembly member are absent. The program is recommended.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. I need a motion to recommend TCI Bring Science Alive, California Integrated Program 6.8 Integrated for adoption by the State Board of Education with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE Report of Findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee with the exceptions of edits 5, 6, and 22, where the SMC chose the publisher language submitted through public comment. With any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Let's conduct the vote.
Okay. IQC Chair Reese.
Aye.
IQC Vice Chair Chow.
Aye.
Commissioner Bromelsack.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild. Commissioner Flores.
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez.
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna.
Aye.
Commissioner Lara.
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz.
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin.
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz.
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria.
Aye.
Commissioner Tonkovich.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Okay, both the senator and assemblywoman are absent. The program is recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, I need a motion to recommend TPS Publishing Incorporated Creative Science Curriculum K-8, K-8 Discipline Specific for adoption by the State Board of Education with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata, printing errors, and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, Commissioner Tonkovich.
Well, there was so much information in the public comment and the publisher's citation of evidence. I just wanted one clarification. If I understand correctly, this new approach is not one centralized textbook. It's what they call a toolbox. So not everything that meets the criteria in one spot, but spread out across grade levels. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's how I interpret it, yeah.
Okay. But did anyone else find that any of the criteria were lacking over that spread, not being centralized, but what the publisher is indicating that they did cite evidence that they met all the criteria?
Okay, so I did an independent review of not this particular program, but the TPS Publishing STEAM into NGSS. I do not have my notes and things like that to cite anything specific. But when I looked at the public comment over all three of these programs, or not the public comment, the report of findings, thank you, of all of these three programs, I kept coming up similar things. And so that's the only thing that I can speak to this. I did review the material that was sent to us in August and for this particular program. And as far as my interpretation is, there were some inconsistencies that I came across, but again, I don't have my specific notes to cite specific evidence for you.
My feeling on this, reading through the report of findings, and this was across all three programs, this was reviewed very deeply by groups of teachers, several different teachers, and they all felt unsupported in the criterion for access and equity. They felt that they were not, that the programs didn't give the support across all of our different groups in California. One of the, in this particular one of the citations that stood out to me was that the teacher resources provide excessive amounts of homework and the need for outside access to supplies and resources that do not support students living in poverty or foster youth. That's a direct quote from the report of findings.
With that, what I'm wondering is those kind of, because there were some social content citations that I totally agreed with the report of findings. But if the publisher, he has that option, they have the option of correcting the category for the citations, correct? Okay.
So I had the opportunity to review this program as well. I'm just going to cite one of the citations from the reviewers for Category 4 that I found a very similar finding. It says, in both the second and fifth grade text cited above, the overwhelming majority of students depicted are white, and all scientists depicted are males, while the teachers are nearly all female. In neither text was there mention of scaffolding for or materials to support ethnically diverse learners, students living in poverty, foster youth, or students with disabilities. And that was the same. I had that similar feeling with reviewing this text, that there was just a real lack of diversity in, and I understand, the publisher, and we've heard comment today that, it's in our program, okay? But the question is how, for me, the question comes to, how substantive is it in your program? Is it in your program so that when students interact with your materials, they're going to see what themselves in the material, or are they going to see white male scientists and female teachers? All the, stereotypical kind of frames, and I'm concerned with that, so.
Commissioner Reese, not to be a pill about this, because I don't know if you know this, but diversity and gender equality are one of my little soapboxes. Is it purely the illustration that was the problem, not the content itself? That, do you know what I'm saying? Changing the illustration to female scientists and male teachers, would that solve that problem?
For me to solve the problem, I'd like to see a diverse representation of scientists, of women in STEM, of African Americans, of, you name it. The diversity was really missing.
But I mean, that's just
program.
the illustration, not the content. What I'm just clarifying is, before I vote, we're talking about easily made changes in illustrations versus content that we cannot change.
I would go as to say that if we were to ask for pictures to be changed at this point, it would not be a minor edit.
I would also like to go back to the report of findings. So in the 3rd grade, the people listed in the program as scientists were Harriet Tubman, Abraham Lincoln, and William Bradford. And so I agree with Commissioner Reese, the amount of social content alone would be too many to consider.
So I just want to add in is that, and pictures are nice, right? I mean, you put diverse pictures, but it goes beyond that, right? It goes beyond in a meaningful, purposeful way, ensuring that diversity, inclusion are included. That's one of the category 1 that must be in there. And while I appreciate the publisher, I looked through the booklet that they gave us of the response of how they have done it. And I really appreciate that code talkers. I'm like, wow, that one's actually really good. But that's only one. And it's not meaningful. It's not meaningfully woven through the entire curriculum, which I would like to see in all our curriculums. And that's one of the charges. And that's a major thing. That's not just changing the colors of socks. That's something much more substantial than that.
And here's another example for EL strategies. It said including speaking slowly and having wait times after asking a question, which are not listed strategies by the California ELD standards, and that call for supporting the acquisition of academic vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to clarify that category 1.11 says that diversity is contributions to society through science and technology. And I think that was the one area that was an issue.
Another thing to consider here is that in terms of category 1, criteria 1, standards not met, the report from the report of findings from the reviewers was just, there was volumes. There was many times where the panel did not feel that this program met the criteria statements. It wasn't just a few, it was extensive.
And there's also a pedagogical and philosophical viewpoint on criteria 1, and that is students are encouraged to ask the teacher for explanation rather than it being a self-inquiry program where students are questioning their own thinking.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. Okay, then I think we'll conduct the vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
No.
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
No.
Commissioner Bromelsack,
No.
Commissioner Chapman,
No.
Commissioner Diaz,
No.
Commissioner Fairchild,
No.
Commissioner Flores,
No.
Commissioner Iniguez,
No.
Commissioner Krishna,
No.
Commissioner Lara,
No.
Commissioner Munoz,
No.
Commissioner Murphy Corwin,
No.
Commissioner Naditz,
No.
Commissioner Renteria,
No.
Commissioner Tonkovich.
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. Commissioner Wu.
No.
Okay, both the senator and assembly member are absent. The program is not recommended.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Okay, I need a motion to recommend TPS Publishing Incorporated STEAM Exploration, K8 integrated for adoption by the State Board of Education with minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? So,
I would just want to point out, I know that in public comment, we were tasked with providing some kind of recommendation of how to be better. Because I know that a lot of our discussion yesterday was focused around the criterion 1.1 and just in general the standards. But I would encourage our publishers to look at the report of findings and look at category 4 access and equity, the second citation, which is very specific. And it highlights that there is no mention of non-standard English or any strategies or scaffolds for assisting these students, mentioning all like minorities, and developing science-specific vocabulary. So maybe that could be a start, providing more ELD strategies. Right after, there is another citation on the need for more modifications and accommodations. So that's, I think those two are very specific recommendations, and that's why it is so important for us to always go back to the report of findings, because these panels took a long time to not just look at criterion 1, which is all the standards, but the access and equity piece is really crucial, especially considering how California looks and the students in our classrooms. So those two, I think, would be, I would encourage them just to take a closer look at them.
thank you, Commissioner Renteria. And, you know, yesterday we heard from public comment how often these reviewers failed to find things in the program and to as far as evidence to cite that they met specific criteria. And I just want to go on record stating that we put a lot of faith in the reviewers, and as a commission, of course, we are tasked with kind of overseeing that and looking deeper as well and coming up with our own judgment. But certainly a big part of this process is the reviewers and our trust in them to conduct diligent, thoughtful reviews, and that was done in these cases. We heard from the facilitators of these 3 programs that are up for, you know, that we're kind of deliberating on, and in all cases, we've heard how the reviewers did a diligent job and you know, conducted their business with integrity, and so I just want to speak to that. Yep, Commissioner.
If I may, in fact, what I heard yesterday was that it was definitely not for lack of trying. The reviewers were not trying to fail any program. They were trying to find evidence. That's what we heard over and over again. They went through and went home or to the hotel and continued trying to find the evidence.
And I just want to say, in my own personal review of this, after one of the pieces, even in the information that they gave us yesterday, is that, you know, one of the criteria is being able to access how it all works together. And while there are many components to this curriculum, it's very difficult to determine the sequence and the order. And I know that it was expressed in public comment that when you get the program that you get them and then they help piece it together. However, still being able to, as you know, to look at their program and see what fits with what, even in the materials we got, there was just a bunch of sticky notes, and then we had to go and go see what comments fit with that criteria in this small part, and that it was very, very time consuming and very overwhelming. So, you know, in the public comment, they asked for feedback. It would be very helpful to see a more program of organization and how we piece these together to create a system. I don't cohesive. I don't.
Yeah, at times it almost feels like there's been several curriculum that have come together to form this curriculum, but it seems like it was created and pulled together from other pieces that aren't cohesive and make it very challenging for the teacher who's very busy. The teachers are extremely busy. They're teaching all day. They have 1 hour to plan, and the organization of a program is essential in order for the efficacy of instruction and quality of instruction to be there. And so when you have a program that's challenging in terms of its organization, that makes it difficult on teachers. That's more constructive feedback.
And it was difficult to see what fit to meet the entire criteria of the performance expectation. While there might be one piece of the DCI in a performance expectation was met here, and then trying to figure out, it was just to make sure that the whole entire performance expectation was difficult.
I want to chime in on that a bit, but in response to yesterday's public comment, I do agree that this was a unique program that educators, as a teacher in the classroom, I would find difficult to master through, to get through the time constraints. It's also one that we're not used to as a template based on our other frameworks. But I do see the value of some of the information that they were trying to present, you know, particularly if you had more of a GATE student, that this might be a program geared to it. Unfortunately, this was not a program in which we can determine what grade level or what student level that they're at in the ability. I have also thought a little bit when I was going through the material that they sent, was they mentioned that it was like the math, and then it dawned on me. I also reviewed the math content, and I was bringing back, oh my God, we almost said the exact same thing. But there is some value in some of this, because some kids, it might be a homeschool curriculum that they're going through, that you have to put the pieces together. But for me, was that equity and access. There was not enough representation of all the students in California. I know there was some comments regarding Alaska, that Alaska has one diverse population, but then if you look back at some of the school districts in Alaska, they are done through a computer, because they're in such areas that are not in the city. So I looked at this, but that curriculum for the equity access was a huge piece that was just blinding. And I think a lot of that was mentioned with the reviewers. I also appreciate the reviewers who took the time to look at it, because if you look at all the criteria that they were citing, it is not one particular grade level that they were saying that was missing. It is all the grade levels. So they really did do due diligence as they were reviewing this program.
Thank you, Commissioner Munoz. Any other further discussion? Okay, let's have a vote.
IQC Chair Reese.
No.
IQC Vice Chair Chow.
No.
Commissioner Bramlsack.
No.
Commissioner Chapman.
No.
Commissioner Diaz.
No.
Commissioner Fairchild.
No.
Commissioner Flores.
No.
Commissioner Iniguez.
No.
Commissioner Krishna.
No.
Commissioner Lara.
No.
Commissioner Munoz,
No.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin,
No.
Commissioner Naditz,
No.
Commissioner Renteria,
No.
Commissioner Tonkovich,
Abstain.
Commissioner Wu.
No.
Okay, both the senator and assemblywoman are absent. The program is not recommended.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, I need a motion to recommend TPS Publishing Incorporated STEAM into NGSS K through 8 integrated for adoption by the State Board of Education with the minor edits and corrections as noted in the IMR CRE report of findings that were accepted by the Science Subject Matter Committee, with any other edits and corrections identified by the Commission, with any publisher submitted errata and administrative updates that were submitted to the CDE.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
So similar to my last comment, just because I do want to be respectful of the time that the publishers took to come and give us public comment, and they are seeking recommendations on how to be better. If you go back to the report of findings on the first criterion, there are multiple, there's 58 citations that just for criterion 1.
Or not met.
And a lot of them are around students not having the opportunity to make observations, students not having the opportunity to plan an investigation. It's very teacher driven. So maybe a very clear recommendation from these findings would be to provide students more opportunities to drive the conversation, to be responsible and engaging in their own learning rather than just being given all the information. Specifically in science, it's a perfect content area to have all those conversations. But if they look at just that one criteria, I think they're going to be able to have a lot of room for improvement in that area. And then back again to the access and equity piece. It's similar to the other programs. It goes back to not addressing the needs of students with disabilities. So it's thinking about our most vulnerable populations. That would be another area for them to focus on.
Yeah, and just looking at the social content citations in the report of findings, number 1, example provided uses grades 5 and segment 2, but this is seen across all grades. And it's a repeated clip art of older white male scientists, and it was used multiple times, the same connection to, what was it called? It was a connection to industry or connection to, it's like making, it was basically a profile of a scientist, essentially, and they ended up using the same white male scientist a couple times in the same grade band. And they had plenty of opportunity to incorporate more diversity at that time and failed to do so. And that was seen by the reviewers here. Anybody have any other discussion for this program? Okay, let's go to a vote.
IQC Chair Reese,
No.
IQC Vice Chair Chow,
No.
Commissioner Bromelsack,
No.
Commissioner Chapman,
No.
Commissioner Diaz,
No.
Commissioner Fairchild, Commissioner Flores,
No.
Commissioner Iniguez,
No.
Commissioner Krishna,
No.
Commissioner Lara,
No.
Commissioner Munoz,
No.
Commissioner Murphy-Corwin,
No.
Commissioner Naditz,
No.
Commissioner Renteria,
No.
Commissioner Tonkovich,
Abstain.
Commissioner Wu.
No.
Okay, both senator and assemblywoman are absent. The program is not recommended.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Okay, I believe that concludes the public hearing. Or, oh, I'm sorry. That concludes the action item on, okay. Thank you. So commissioners, I want to thank you for your thoughtful discussion and action today. Our recommendations will be considered by the State Board at its meeting in November. I especially want to thank each of you for the time you have contributed to this project As a result of your hard work on this adoption, you can be confident that school districts will have a wide variety of quality choices when selecting instructional materials aligned to the content standards and curriculum framework adopted by the state board. Okay. So we can all kind of take a deep breath, release. And let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at 11 o'clock. Okay, let's reconvene. So our next item on the agenda is the Draft Health Education Framework public hearing. And I will turn it over to Commissioner Wu. But yeah. I was just reading that real quick, but I'll turn it over to Commissioner Wu.
Okay, thank you, Chair Reese. Good morning. So on September 19th, which was this past Wednesday, the Health Subject Matter Committee met to review the public comments submitted to the Health Framework during the first 60-day review period. The members of the Health Subject Matter Committee who attended this meeting included Vice Chair Fairchild and Commissioners Diaz, Flores, Iniguez, and Lara. We were also joined by Commissioners Chapman, Munoz, Murphy-Corwin, and Naditz, State Board Liaison Ortiz-Licon, Executive Director Dr. Stephanie Gregson, CDE staff Lindsay Weiss and Constantino Silva, and the Health Framework writers Sloan Burke, Jamie Garrig, and Brittany Bray. Our meeting on Wednesday was very productive, and today we will present a list of recommended edits to be made to the draft of the Health Education Framework. Our process for recommending edits was guided by the following principles. Changes to the draft Health Education Framework must first be consistent with the guidelines adopted by the State Board of Education, must provide clarification and eliminate redundancies, add value to the draft chapter or appendix document, be consistent with and support the grade level and grade span standards, be supported by research, and the research must be properly cited, and reflect current state statute. We also had significant public comment during the course of the meeting. We had 23 different members of the public come and comment for us, and honestly, it was affirming and wonderful. The youngest was an 8th grade student from Palo Alto, and he advocated for his peers that this framework stay as diverse and integrated as it is, and it was wonderful to hear the support that we are receiving from the public. It was wonderful. We also received a great amount of public comment, which is summarized in this document that you should have all received. Let's see. The CDE prepared the list of the public comments, and it's in the agenda packet as attachment 3. The full text of those comments and any received since August 19th were also sent via email links to the CDE box account and are available in hard copy. Do we have hard copy in the back? Okay. All right. So attachment 103B and attachment 131A, because those are the ones that you want to double check. So those were the additional ones that were sent. You should have received them on Monday. And those public comments did include actionable line edit recommendations that we discussed during the SMC meeting on Wednesday. We will share our recommendations for these and all edits during the meeting today. And back to you.
Thank you. So thank you, Commissioner Wu, and to the members of the Health SMC and all who attended the Health Subject Matter Committee meeting on the 19th. We are all looking forward to reviewing the recommendations that the Health SMC have prepared for our discussion and action today. At this time, I would like to invite any members of the public to give public comment on the Health Education Framework. All members of the public wishing to speak must sign up at the table near the doors. The CDE staff will call each person up to the microphone by number. Each person will have 2 minutes to provide their comment. We will be keeping track of the time and will let you know when the end of your 2 minutes is up. Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 members of the public who have signed up, so I guess 1 to 3, you can line up.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Alexandra Carter, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union of Northern California, one of the conveners of the California Sexual Health Education Roundtable, and also as a former sexual health educator in the San Francisco Unified School District. I would first like to applaud the writers, committee members, and staff members of the California Department of Education for their tireless efforts to create such an instructive framework that aligns with current state law and content standards. Since the passage of the California Healthy Youth Act in 2015, the ACLU has supported districts and community members to implement inclusive and comprehensive sexual health education in their local schools. Through this work, we understand the critical need for guidance, like the health framework, for actualizing the purpose of this law. When I was teaching sex ed in clinical and school-based settings, I witnessed firsthand the dearth of information for gender nonconforming youth and the need for additional support on how to best meet the needs of California's diverse students, particularly those who are most marginalized, including LGBTQ youth and English language learners. The most recent national and state data show that the majority of LGBTQ students have felt unsafe and excluded in school and are disproportionately impacted by negative health outcomes, something that the young people that I worked with also confirmed for me. And contrary to some of the written comments that you have received, this only reinforces the importance of inclusive health education and resources for our educators. Fortunately for our California students, Education Code now requires that sex ed be inclusive of LGBTQ students and affirmatively teach about sexual orientation and gender. The framework in its current form provides educators with the necessary guidance for compliance and reinforces the duty of schools. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Greg Burt. I'm the Capital Director for the California Family Council, and I have some written comments I'd like to make. The Health Education Framework is being rewritten, as you know, to incorporate the California Healthy Youth Act. However, it does violate Ed Code 51933 4D, and I'll quote it here. It says, "Instruction and material shall not reflect or promote bias against any person on the basis of any category protected by Section 220. And religion is included in Section 220. The Health Education Framework is actually very biased against traditional religious families, Jewish, Protestant, Catholic, Muslim, Mormon. As written, it would be easy for children from these families to feel that their beliefs are seen as myths that need to be challenged and may even be abusive. This violates Ed Code 51933. For example, the framework says that this regarding spiritual abuse. Now I'm going to quote here. It says, "Examples for spiritual abuse include forcing boyfriends and girlfriends or partners to do things against their beliefs, not allowing them to do things they enjoy." This paragraph is extremely insensitive to a variety of Orthodox religious families. It can easily be interpreted to mean that even the most basic religious beliefs and practices of these families are abusive. For example, if a family teaches modesty in romantic relationships, but the children believe they should have premarital sexual intercourse, the framework could be interpreted to mean that such insistence on modesty is abusive. And so we're just asking.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's see. We have a microphone here. Okay, thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning, members of the commission. Matthew McReynolds, Senior Staff Attorney at Pacific Justice Institute. We advise, educate, litigate on behalf of families throughout California on constitutional issues as well as issues surrounding the California Healthy Youth Act and related statutes. Unfortunately, the proposed recommended framework virtually guarantees that many more families will either opt out entirely from health class or from instruction on sexual health, or will choose to drop out entirely from the public school system in favor of private or homeschools. This is not inclusive toward the millions of Californians who still have significant issues with organizations like the ACLU and Planned Parenthood, or directly promoted and inappropriately promoted, as well as books like My Princess Boy. I just want to underscore what Mr. Burt was saying about the spiritual abuse aspect of the dating violence. This has no place in a health framework for a school to take a position on what is spiritual. The definition of spirituality there is extraordinarily broad. It's so open-ended. We have no idea what all it's going to entail, but I can tell you it raises serious issues under the First Amendment. So on that basis, and many others based in comments you've received, we would urge the commission to reject the framework, go back to the drawing board, do something that's going to be inclusive, not just for LGBTQ minority students, but for all students, including the millions of Californians who still have traditional values. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, members of the public, for your comment. We'll turn the meeting back over to Commissioner Wu.
Okay, so let's take a close look at the recommended edits that the Health SMC is recommending to the full IQC today. The list of recommended edits that we are presenting for the full Commission's consideration are correlated with the public comments in attachment 1A. That's the great big gigantic packet. And it was mailed to you, it was emailed to you. There's a lot of different versions of it out there. Well, they're all the same, but different types. So this was part of your agenda packet in August. At this time, I will ask for Lindsay Weiss, Education Programs Assistant and Lead Staff Member for the Health Framework, to walk us through Attachment 1A and the list of recommended edits that we will vote on today. Lindsay will also be able to answer any questions that you may have regarding the format of any of the attachments included in your agenda packet. Lindsay, it's all you.
Good morning. Can I maybe move it a little bit? Good morning, Commissioners, State Board Member. We are, let's take a look at the blue packet that you have. And for members of the public, this is available at the back table. It's white paper, not blue, sorry, but it's the same content. So the HSMC, the Health Subject Matter Committee list of recommended edits. Sorry, I feel like I'm not close enough. Sure. Thanks. Sorry, we have a lot of paper over here. Okay. So you will notice that this document only lists the edits that the Health SMC is recommending to be included in the draft of the framework. The two categories are either recommend, which means that the HSMC recommends the IQC includes the addition, edits, and/or changes as stated in the public comment, and/or with the HSMC's instructions to the writers, which you will see marked with an asterisk, and the notes are in the tables on each of the chapter pages of this packet. The other category for recommending edits to include in the framework is recommend with writer's discretion, which means that the HSMC recommends the IQC recommend these comments and permit the health education framework writers and CDE staff to decide during the revision process how best to add the content, include or exclude the edit recommended by the public, or edit existing content based on the public comment. So in other words, just a little bit of flexibility, however, that the comment will be included. You will notice that the HSMC has given specific instructions for many of these comments, which are included with an asterisk. The comment numbers that appear in this list correlate with the comment numbers in attachment 1A, which is the table that you received in August. I would like to point out that the commissioners made some changes to the CDE's recommended actions that appear printed on attachment 1A. The third column in the blue packet, or the HSMC recommended edits list, accounts for these changes. For example, there were instances where the CDE recommended that a particular comment should be approved as writer's discretion, which means that during the revision process, the framework writers would decide to include or exclude the content. However, the HSMC changed some of these comments that were originally labeled as writer's discretion to recommend, to ensure that they are included, or recommend with writer's discretion, and therefore ensuring that these comments will be included in the next draft of the framework. So you will notice that comments from attachment 1A that are labeled as writer's discretion and were not changed by the Health SMC as recommend with writer's discretion are not listed in the table of recommended edits, this blue packet. This indicates that the writers will make decisions about these comments during the revision process, and most likely, possibly, not all of these comments will be included in the next draft. I say all of this just so that all of you have the opportunity to make sure that the comments that you have highlighted from your notes and want to see in the next draft of the framework are not overlooked and are discussed today. Does anyone have any questions regarding the list of recommended edits or attachment 1A? Okay, you will also notice that the comments from attachment 1B, 2A, or 2B, which were sent in August, are not listed in this list of recommended edits that we'll discuss today. Attachment 2B is the raw data file of all survey responses that we received during the first 60-day review period. The survey responses had both actionable and non-actionable comments. All of the actionable comments submitted through the online survey are included in attachment 1A. The non-actionable comments from the survey are included in attachment 1B, and the rating responses from the survey are included in attachment 2A. All of those documents are also available for public to download on our CDE website. And just to clarify, the comments that are categorized as non-actionable are so because the purpose of the comment is to share individuals' and organizational's concerns, support, and/or personal experiences as they relate to the framework, and therefore do not provide specific direction for the SMC or IQC to take action. I'm happy to answer any questions any of you may have regarding the formatting or content of any of these attachments.
We also have our writing team here, Sloan Burke, Jamie Garrick, and Brittany, who are here to answer any of your questions during your discussion.
Okay, thank you for that explanation, Lindsay. Commissioners Wu and Fairchild, would you like to add anything before we begin discussing the Health SMC's recommendations? Okay. Today we will take action to 1, request edits to be made to the current draft health education framework. 2, recommend the draft framework with those edits to the State Board of Education for adoption. The edits that we, the full IQC, approve today will be made by the writers and the staff after the September IQC meeting and will be published online for the second 60-day review period from November 2018 to January 2019. The revised version of the framework will be recommended to the State Board of Education for adoption. We will use the HSMC list of recommended edits to guide our discussion today. Does anyone have any questions regarding our charge for today? For any commissioners or state board liaisons who have suggested edits you want to bring up that may not appear on the HSMC list of recommended edits, I ask you to wait until we are discussing the chapter or appendix that your suggested edit is in. With the large volume of comments and suggested revisions, we need to be purposeful in this discussion. We will use the HSMC list of recommended edits to guide our discussion, and therefore we will not be able to discuss every comment listed in the attachments. However, we will spend as much time as needed to address all of your questions or concerns that relate to any of the HSMC's list of recommended edits. Edits that you have brought with you today to discuss that do not appear on the HSMC list of recommended edits, or edits that you yourself would like to propose. Also, please do not hesitate to bring up comments from any other attachments as they relate to our deliberations during this discussion. Let's begin our review of the recommended edits made by the Health SMC. I propose that we review the recommendations in chunks by chapter. However, before we work through the HSMC list of recommended edits packet, let's look at attachment 103B, which is in each of your red action folders.
And Commissioner Chair Reese, I'm sorry, it should be 130B.
Okay.
I apologize, typo.
130B in your red action folder. No one's finding that. Did you find it? No.
So just to clarify, the health SMC members received these attachments in your blue folders on Wednesday. I apologize. And for the commissioners, we have one copy that we can share with everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. The HSMC recommends that each of these line edit recommendations should be recommended with writer's discretion. Commissioner Wu, would you like to say anything else about these comments?
This was the additional public comment, yes? From, okay, so the student, right? Okay, so, sorry, I don't actually have it in front of me, but I remember it. So we actually had public comment, significant public comment given to us by a high school student who is very passionate about skin cancer. And so she went through the entire framework and found several different places where students could be reminded to put on sunscreen to protect themselves against the sun. And she actually further sent all of her references, all of her citations as well to all of that information. So I went through all of those and recommended that we add those additions in as, again, to writer's discretion as to how they fit exactly. But we did recommend those.
Thank you, Commissioner Wu. So do we have a consensus to approve these 10-line edit recommendations to be included in the framework with the writer's discretion? Okay. Any discussion on that, or good to go? Okay. So let's move on. We will begin with Chapter 1. Please take a moment to review the SMC's recommendations located on the HSMC list of recommended edits and using attachment 1A to view the content of each of their recommendations. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we're reviewing Chapter 1's SMC recommendations. Okay. Does anybody need more time? Okay. Are there any recommended edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with? Does anyone have additional edits to add to Chapter 1? Okay, hearing none? Okay, so we're going to move on to Chapter 2. So please take a moment to review the recommended edits in Chapter 2. Does anybody need more time for Chapter 2? Okay. So are there any recommended edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with from Chapter 2, or any additional edits to add? Okay, hearing none, let's go to chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3 is transitional kindergarten through grade 3. Let's take a moment to review the recommended edits. Okay.
We're aware of that.
I thought it was Letty.
Not Letty. Leafy.
Leafy, sorry.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we're right next to each other. It's
Yeah.
understood.
We're not recommending lead. Just
Yeah, no lead in the greens.
I also just wanted to make a comment. We had a discussion about the word milk when using plant-based alternatives. And in light of the new information that's coming out, I just wanted to say that that's why that recommendation came in, because we didn't know in the future how they would be labeled. So trying to come up with language that still honored the product.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Fairchild. Anybody have any recommended edits that you want to discuss, or any additional edits to add to chapter 3? Okay, let's move on to chapter 4. Chapter 4 is grades 4 through 6. Let's take a minute to review the recommended edits. Okay. Are there any recommended edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with from chapter 4? Okay. Anyone have additional edits you'd like to add?
I have a question. I don't know if this is the right time or not, but I'm looking at the vignettes on the instruction for the purpose and the standards, and I noticed there's a disconnect between K3, and then you look at the, I don't know if it's time, but you look at the grade 4 through 6. They're not written in the same format, and I just want to recommend that we keep it in the same format. Well, I'm just looking at one example. On this one here is like page 45 on the 3rd grade, and it lists the vignette and has the standard supplies. But then when you go to a 4th grade, and this is as a 3rd grade classroom teacher, this is what I would want to see. In case I'm moving grade levels, I would have a difficulty of saying, hey, there's the stuff down here.
Right,
Yeah.
it's the learning activities
Yeah.
versus the one is the more vignettes, so.
Sloan, can you please use the microphone? I know.
Go ahead.
I apologize. Thank you for the good comment. One is the more detailed classroom example, and the others are tiny vignettes. They're classroom activities, so they're more of a snapshot, a tinier, less detailed.
Can you keep it consistent from one grade to the next?
We have kept it consistent in terms of the detailed teaching examples that are more detailed, and then the activities. But we'll ensure that that's definitely consistent.
So Commissioner
across the
Munoz,
board.
and similar to our ELA, ELD framework where we have snapshots and vignettes, just like with the health framework, we have vignettes that are longer. They're just named differently. And then we have the classroom activities that are those snapshots. So they serve two different purposes. That's why they're formatted differently, because they're different. They're not the same. But all of the classroom activities in each grade level chapter is the same formatting, along with the classroom examples that are the same formatting. Does that make sense? That they serve two different purposes.
It does make sense, but since this document is used as a resource for the first time, that teachers have an actual say that can use it as a resource, I'm just trying to, how would I apply this as a classroom teacher, looking at one side versus looking at one format at another? I understand the structural strategies, but I just have a hard time when I'm looking for information, since I'm now given the choice under this document to teach a concept here in health. I kind of want to make it the same. And if I was going from one grade level to another, I would have a little difficulty and I'd get frustrated. And since, again, this document is allowing me the discretion, or even if I want to teach a concept in here and my district is against it, I would still be able to have the information that I can pull real quick to say, this is what is it that I want to teach and how I want to teach it. I just see it's a little difficult to understand, but I understand what you've done. But if you can just make that connection a little bit tighter.
Okay, definitely. We value that input and we'll ensure it's consistent throughout. And we'll also have other resources such as supporting resource page and vignettes that we'll be working on as well, so that we'll provide those further further support for the difficult subjects to teach. So there will be additional resources coming in that as well. So, but I definitely will ensure consistency throughout.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Munoz, for that great input. Anybody else have any recommended edits, or you want to discuss additional edits perhaps from Chapter 4?
Okay, I have another one.
Okay, great.
Again, looking through the eyes of a teacher and an administrator coming in and telling me that I need to put my standards and stuff, where do I find the information in terms of how are these connected to the higher learning for the Common Core standards as an integrated through different curriculums that we have, like ELA or social studies, history?
We have the integration in the text. So in the beginning narratives, you'll see the integration into ELA, ELD, Common Core for Science, and a few of the integrations into the narrative.
Can you tell me what page that's on?
Let's see, we need to search for the, yes, it's for each chapter and sort of the beginning for science, and it's in each chapter. Let's see, for the grade level chapters. Yeah, there was one in TK. I apologize, it's per grade level. And we definitely have the science integration and ELA, ELD integration when possible through the activities and obviously in some of the narrative, but.
So one example is on page 16.
And one example is also on.
If you look at beginning line 401 all the way through, you'll see several different standards connections for English language arts, literacy, and California NGSS as they're appropriate for those health standards.
Also, one is in grade one. One is in grade one as well, where we reference the California ELA literacy, W1.2, yeah, the Common Core standard for literacy in first grade. We also have a science integration in first grade. We don't.
Page 77.
Page 7.
Page 77 of chapter 3.
Page 77 of chapter 3. Yeah, we're in chapter 3 right now.
2055.
Thank you, Costa. Line 2055. There we go. There's another one. California comments where you sort of see, thank you, Costa. Sesame Street Brushy Brush chart, links to 3 brushing timer apps, or other at the end of the paragraph there. The writing activity connects to the California Common Core standards for English language arts literacy. So at the end there at 2057. I know it takes a little bit.
Okay, my other question is concerned because if you're having a hard time looking for these standards as a teacher and I'm being called upon to put them on the whiteboard or something, I need to be able to have access quickly. Is there a way you can maybe, I know the page numbers, the pages over 1,000 limit, but is there a way that they can have like an appendix where you can list real quickly where the standards are for that particular grade level so you can have that document for
Definitely.
for the program?
Definitely. I think that's a good suggestion.
We also have talked about and plans to create sort of a living resource page that will be hosted on CDE webpage for schools. That will happen after the framework is published, so perhaps that could be a crosswalk or a resource that we can include. But thank you for your feedback, and we will look through the framework and see how we can make the Common Core standards be very clear. You know.
And will the career and college readiness also be addressed?
Yes, and in fact, we already have a vignette written for that in terms of ELA, ELD integration and college readiness. And we have some integrated activities as well for the college readiness and career professional preparation.
And we'll be able to see that at the next meeting, to that vignette or anything?
Yes, we can. Yes. We can definitely. Yes, that's great.
Thank you.
Is it possible to even do maybe some color coding within the final document so that those pop out? I don't know. I know there's a whole bunch of rules about accessibility.
So there's not only the 508 compliance, but also our web posting standards. And there are 2 different standards that have to join together with our framework documents. With the science framework that was 2,000 pages long, it took us 6 to 9 months to get it ready for posting on the website. Because of the color coding and things that had to be changed. So I just want you to be aware of that as you're thinking about these decisions, that, you know, is it something that is detrimental or, you know, absolutely necessary, or is it something that we can utilize as a resource page that we have more time to create, if that makes sense, because I wouldn't want to delay the posting of the framework in its final format because of color coding.
I think a resource page is a good alternative that it'd be easily accessible to teachers who want to look for it.
Yeah, I also, just to chime in too, I agree with Commissioner Munoz that having a table built into the vignette, you know, maybe an extra column or row that calls out the connections to Common Core or NGSS or whatever set of standards it makes connections to is helpful for the teacher, and especially in a subject where integration is it's an important kind of practical step in terms of getting this kind of content into the classroom. Okay. Any other discussion on Chapter 4, suggested edits or recommendations? Okay, let's go on to Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is grades 7 through 8. Take a minute to review the recommended edits. Okay, does anybody need more time to review Chapter 5? Are there any recommended edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with? Okay, does anyone have any additional edits to add? Okay, let's go on to Chapter 6, grades 9 through 12.
I think, again, just for clarification, we were talking about the terms STD and STI, and that in the framework, we will address it as STI unless it's quoted in the health standards where it was STD. We had discussion about why there was two terms.
Yeah, so the term has changed over time. And when the standards were, or when the original standards were written, the term was sexually transmitted disease. And since then, the medical community has transferred over to using the term sexually transmitted infection. So we're going to transfer to STI except when we're specifically referencing the standards where we have to use STD.
Are there any recommended edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with or that you'd like to add? Okay, let's move on to Chapter 7, Access and Equity. Okay. Are there any recommended edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with? Or that you'd like to add? Okay. All right, hearing none, let's go on to Chapter 8, Assessment. There was no comments recommended by the HSMC, so are there any recommended edits that you'd like to add? Okay, and then there was 2 recommendations for Chapter 9, Instructional Materials. Okay, any recommended edits that you want to discuss or do not agree with? Okay, then we're moving on to Appendix 1, Sex Trafficking. There were no recommended edits by the HSMC. And Appendix 2 also had no recommended edits, so. Does anyone have any additional edits that they'd want to add? Okay. Okay, so have we reached consensus then on which recommended edits to accept, change, or reject? I think so. Lindsay? Okay. I would like to formalize our decision with a motion. So I need a motion to, 1, request the agreed upon edits discussed today be made to the current draft health education framework, and 2, recommend that the draft health education framework with those edits to the State Board of Education for adoption. Does anybody have a question about any of the consensus decisions we made today? So, okay. we need to list the recommended edits?
No.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so may I have a motion to, one, request the agreed-upon edits discussed today be made to the current draft health education framework, and two, recommend the draft health education framework with those edits to the State Board of Education for adoption?
I so move.
Okay, the motion has been made by Commissioner Wu. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. The motion has been seconded by Commissioner Lara. Is there any discussion of the motion? Are there any comments from the State Board liaison? No. Are there any public comment on the motion? Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. David Jordan Cook, California Teachers Association. I just really want to applaud Commissioner Munoz and Commissioner Wu of really calling out, and I really hope the writers can really take it upon themselves to look at making that really direct link for teachers. Because many teachers, they need to be able and are required by many districts to be able to write the standard that connects to the lessons and the things that they are teaching. So whatever way we can help them do that explicitly at this very, very beautiful framework, that will be an incredible help. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Then I believe we are ready to vote. We will be conducting a roll call vote.
Chair Reese,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chow,
Aye.
Commissioner Bromosick,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman,
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Fairchild,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Iniguez,
Aye.
Commissioner Krishna,
Aye.
Commissioner Lara,
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy Corwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Naditz,
Aye.
Commissioner Renteria is absent, Commissioner Tonkovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
and Assemblywoman and Senator are absent. So motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you, commissioners, for your thoughtful discussion today. The Health Education Framework is a groundbreaking document, and the work that we have done today will help to make it more useful for the teachers and students in California. And thank you, writers and CDE staff, and Dr. Gregson for your leadership in this process, okay? Thank you to the members of the public who provided comment on the draft framework. We look forward to your continued input as we move into the second 60-day review period. Okay. So that takes us to item F, individual commissioner reports. Yep, Commissioner Tonkovich.
Well, I just wanted to thank Letty Krause for this fabulous job she's doing. Just on Thursday, she set up a listserv for updates on the revisions, and she sent out a call about the public review, which ends on September 30th, and we'll get to see those comments at the November meeting. And as Dr. Gregson said, the last focus group met on the 12th, which I was unable to attend, but I've got the notes and the audio recording, and we'll look at those will be used to inform the guidelines for the draft of the new curriculum framework, and we'll look at that in November. And also going on are the CFCC applications, which end October 15th, we will look at in November. So November is going to be a big VAPA meeting, as well as, I know, other subject matters. But I just wanted to update the group and thank Letty and the CDE staff for what a great job they're doing.
Thank you. Would other commissioners like to report? Okay. I'll say a few words then. I just want to say today marks a pretty monumental day for science. So we made our recommendation to the State Board of Education today that they adopt 29 programs, I think. And that's amazing in the sense that the students of California will have access to rich programs that are connected deeply to the next generation science standards. As we heard from Jessica Sauco earlier, now districts will have to conduct their independent reviews and see what's best for their local situation. But I mean, this work took a lot of people and their effort to put this together. So I just want to say thank you to a few people. Dr. Brian Boyd was the lead consultant on science instructional materials, and his work began how many years ago?
Well, many years ago.
Many years. Cliff Rudnick, 5 years ago? 5 years ago. So this is 5 years in the making. So that's just outstanding. And then, if you think back to the 100 reviewers from the field that came out and did their work, and all the public input and comment that was made to bring us to today, the publisher's hard work attending IQC meetings when the science curriculum framework was being developed. It goes on and on and on. And CD staff were facilitators for these review panels, and all of the hard work that the commissioners around this dais put in to train reviewers, and then to actually be facilitators, what did we do? Yeah, we did a lot of stuff. And then Cliff Rudnick has just been a state instrumental in the process and is just always there. And I just remember him from both the training and the actual deliberations. He was there before any of us got there, and he left usually after all of us left. So he was just working extremely diligently on this process. And the leadership of Dr. Gregson during this whole process, and it really was a monumental effort to bring instructional materials to our state in science, and just want to thank everyone that was involved. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Lara.
And I want to thank everybody for the constant focus on equity and access for our students in these materials, and then everybody being diverse views being represented on materials. Oftentimes, what's it called? Folks can be really critical of the materials because of the historic misrepresentation and the historic of the leaving out of certain groups. And we're fixing that, and we're doing a great job of moving forward in a new direction. And I think that's absolutely amazing. So when I see us calling different things out, when I see us taking a critical look at ourselves, it really is reflective of where we are as a community, where we are as a state, and where we want to be as well. And that's reflected in what we do in our chapters on access and equity, but within the way we use a completely democratic process with multiple checks and multiple public input into the materials we develop. I really, really learned to appreciate that in this process. So thank you, every single one of the commissioners and the writers, for keeping a key eye on that. It is important that we represent all of California. Gracias.
Thank you, Commissioner Lara. Any other reports from commissioners? Okay, well, with that, public comment. We have public comment. Any public comment on anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, so hearing none, I will adjourn the meeting of the Instructional Quality Commission.